Let's see if this is still on. Ooh, the mic is still on. All right, it's 6:35 and we have a lot of ground to cover. So without further ado, once again, welcome again. This is the Federal Way Black Collective quarterly meeting with the mayor. We have a packed agenda. There's going to be a lot of great discussions. You'll be able to hear what is happening around our city, ways to engage. First, a couple of things. We're doing this a little bit differently. That little pandemic thing that had got us, through some hard times in 2020, it's still lingering on. So here in 2022, we still have people who are here and present, and we're doing it differently where there's also folks on Zoom. We do not want to leave anybody behind. So here's what we're going to do. For those who are on Zoom, Felicia Hudson, Federal Way Black Collective, sis, I'm going to need you to be my eyes and ears. Get that chat. Notify me if there's anything happening in the chat. I see you, sis. There we go. Okay, so the chat is live. Continue to engage in the conversations. We want your comments. We want your feedback to the great ideas that you hear today. For those of you in person, you are not on mute. Go ahead and make some noise just right now, just to clap, to let the folks know we're here. All right, all right. We got a packed house even here. Y'all may not be able to see it, but it is looking good. All of these faces live and direct. So we want to go over just a few of the rules, just decorum, meeting decorum. It probably doesn't need to be said, but we're going to say it anyways, just to keep everybody on the same page. There will be no shouting. I'm the only one that will be allowed to get loud. No shouting at each other. Remember, be hard on the issue, but soft on the person. Okay, hard on the issue, be soft on the person. No name calling, no, just none of that type of stuff. We know how to act. We grown folks. Also, I want to make certain that you make sure that you do engage. This is our opportunity to sit at the table with people in positions of power. Speak your mind, hold your truth. This is that space to do it. Don't come to this meeting just wanting to be a spectator. That is not the purpose of this meeting. We want everyone engaged. Bring all your brilliance to the table. Let's make certain that when we walk away from the table, we have an agenda in place that we can all move forward together on. Yes? All right. So with that, I want to make certain that we start off. I have the agenda here. Let's start off with Federal Way Black Collective announcements. Felicia, is there anyone from Federal Way Black Collective that wants to give the announcements?
Yeah, I can go ahead and give the announcement. So we have our Juneteenth event that's coming up. Starting on the 17th, we will be doing a flag raising event at City Hall with a few fun things to follow. We will also be at the farmers market and having a small business day where we are highlighting small businesses throughout the community, as well as a lot of other fun things. And then Sunday, the 19th, we are going to have a family day. Location is to be determined, so please check out our webpage to keep an eye out. But we will have carnival games, food, and a few giveaways. So please come check us out.
Thank you so much. So please, if you haven't already, make certain that you like us on Facebook, social media, Instagram, all of those things. You can find us at the Federal Way Black Collective. We have exciting things lined up for the summer, things that you don't want to miss. All right, so let's talk about the agenda, what you can expect. We're going to have the mayor's office. The mayor wasn't able to join us, but we are in good hands, y'all. Don't worry, because we've got our friend Brian here to make certain that we don't miss a beat. We're going to hear from the mayor's office. He's going to talk about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, maybe. Okay. So he's going to talk to us for a few. And then we're going to go immediately into the question and answer from the community. Okay. So y'all didn't want me to take up the microphone. If you will, please, mayor's office. Let's get to work.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And again, on behalf of the mayor, apologize that he couldn't make it tonight. He, with COVID, things going around, we have to be careful about what we say, but he did want me to let you know that he gave me permission to let you know that he was not feeling well and therefore would not be able to make it tonight. He apologizes for that. So we'll do our best to get the agenda taken care of and any other questions that you might have tonight. And we're gonna work as a team here, so I'm not gonna stand up here the whole time. On the call, we have Deputy Chief Stephen Neal. He's going to answer some of the issues on the agenda that relate to police. And then also here tonight is Sarah Bridgeford, Human Services Manager. She's going to talk a couple things about homelessness and housing. And then I'd also like to introduce a few other people that are here with us tonight. We have Council President Linda Kochmar and Council Member Erica Norton, Council Member Lydia Seffa-Dawson, and Council Member Jack Dovey. And one more person I want to introduce is our new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coordinator, Kia McGlone. We're very happy to have her with us as well. So the first item is an update on our juvenile arrests. And Chief Neal, are you set to go on that one?
I am.
All right, take it away. So let me just read the agenda item so we're all on the same page. So it's update on juvenile arrests. Federal Way Police Department juvenile arrests have been going down. So we're gonna have an update from the Deputy Chief on actions and steps that may have led to this great reduction. So Chief Neal.
So as Brian said, we have had a downward trend in our juvenile arrests. So what we did, in order to give you an update, I was asked to go through our NIBRs, which are the 28 different categories that we calculate our arrest by that get sent to the FBI. So we went back 7 years so that we could get a pretty good indication about how the trend has been going. So it does fluctuate some when it gets into 2019. And what we suspect is, of course, is that has to do with COVID. It had to do with schools being out and that sort of thing and different things going on in the community. But I also, what I have is I have our numbers through May of this year, current, in these different categories. I'm not going to talk about all the 28 categories, just the few that have a distinct difference in them, if you will. And then I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding the juvenile arrest. So the first thing, the first one that has actually, this one is trending higher, and that is simple assaults, in which we have had 13 already this year. And as in perspective, last year we had 10, in 2020 we had 12. And then you get back to 2019 and beyond, it goes up to, it averages about 20 per year. So we are trending a little bit higher in that category. Another category that really went down tremendously, especially from 2020 to this year, which we have no burglaries involving juveniles, so no burglary arrests at all so far this year. The robbery is an interesting one because that we've had a dramatic drop again with robbery, and I have a little bit of information on what we think may be the causal factors of that. We've only had 2 this year, and it usually averages about 20 per year. But when we think about robberies, and we're talking about juveniles, typically I think what used to happen, that could be primarily in the schools, where it's cell phones and things like that that maybe are being taken and then were sent to the police department and therefore categorized as robberies, if you will. That is trending quite a bit lower so far. It looks like if we stay on track, it'll probably maybe be 5 or so for the year instead of 14 as it was last year. Another one is theft. Again, I think primarily, and I'll talk about this a little bit, it's the last category I really want to talk about, but it usually trends about 30, and we've only had 2 arrests for theft, juvenile arrests this year. So overall, the total number of juvenile arrests so far this year are 30. Now that's trending a little higher from last year, but it's right on track for 2020 and then quite a bit lower than years before. So if we stay on track, we'll probably have 80 or so arrests total for the whole 28 categories. So I think a couple of things that are happening here, which I think the schools are really doing a good job with handling more internally, if you will, things that happen in the schools and through their own processes. We don't, the schools take care of some of their issues. We don't necessarily refer criminal cases that the school does not, if you will. So if it comes to us, we refer all criminal cases, but I don't believe that we're getting as many as we typically have over the years. The other thing that's happening, you all know about some of the drug laws that are going on, but there's really not much to do with the minor possessions, if you will, of drugs that the schools can't handle themselves. And also the prosecutors have made it pretty clear that they really don't want to prosecute real petty theft. And that goes along with the category I talked about. Theft is down to 2 for the year so far. So I think those are some of the things that are happening. Certainly it is a decrease, if you will, in a lot of those categories when it comes to juvenile arrests. And I think one of the questions that came up that I was asked to take a look at is referrals. I think most of you know that there's basically about 3 different places that I'm not talking about criminal. I want to make that clear. I'm talking about outreach groups where the schools or anyone for that matter can send information on mostly anything that's not criminal. It could be troubled youth or people or youth that just need motivation or they need counseling, that sort of thing, which is Progress Pusher, Phenomenal She, and Youth Link. So those are the 3, I think, major that I'm aware of anyway, and that our school resource officers, if you will, work with the most as far as juveniles being referred to for a variety of things. That's kind of it in a nutshell that I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has on this information.
Oh, you are taller than me. No, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. Before we go on to the next agenda on the item, I want to recognize a few people because we've got the Honorable Jamila Taylor that just walked in. Representative Jesse Johnson is still here. Thank you so much for your service to Federal Way. We love the work that you've done. We also have on the Zoom Senator Claire Wilson. Yes, I see that. And we have our school board representative, Lakeisha Phillips. City Councilman Huang Tran, we see you on Zoom as well. Yes, brother, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Okay, we're going to keep the discussion going. And next on the agenda, give us the update.
Okay, again, thank you. For this next section on homelessness, we're going to tag team between Sarah and the chief. Chief, I believe yours is the criminalization of homelessness. That's 4th on the agenda. So be prepared on that one. I can help out with that one as well. Do you want to go first then? Okay.
I am also not that tall. Which I could have figured that out. So I'm going to cover a couple. I'll actually be passing the Park 16 item back to Deputy Chief as well. But I'll start with a little bit of information on the Day Center expansion. The Day Center has been in the city of Federal Way since 2016, and just this spring celebrated an expansion of their services. So they're open same hours, Monday through Friday, but they've added an on-site medical clinic. And with that, they've created a more welcoming space. So as people enter, there's somebody who will greet them, an entryway, there's a courtyard and some other services that are located. They'll have access to behavioral health services, case management, hygiene services, housing, employment. All of that will be located there, but the medical expansion is probably the biggest service, and then the revamping of that space to make it more welcoming. Next item is an update on the Afghanistan refugee transition from the extended stay here in Federal Way. As that transition has happened. In the time that the Afghanistan refugees were able to be housed at that site, over 450 people accessed that service through King County. Of those 450, most were actually able to find either permanent housing or shared housing with relatives or friends. And then I don't know the number, but some people did transition to Redmond, if I'm not mistaken. Health through housing, there was a question, and I'll explain a little bit more on where they're at in that process. I think the question was related to whether or not that extended stay site would be used for Ukrainian refugees. And there is no plan to do that. King County is pursuing a selection process for the operator of that site and the renovation of that site as well. So they're moving forward with the original purpose for health through housing as permanent supportive housing for people experiencing homelessness. Next up, we have the Park 16. Deputy Chief, if you want to take this one, or Brian. Oh, I'm sorry, criminalizing homelessness.
Yeah, so we're several years now into our homelessness initiative that we've had since 2016. And I think that when it comes to the issue of criminalizing homelessness, that's not something really that we have done or plan to do. What we really address are if it's someone who is experiencing homelessness and they commit crimes. That's what we respond to when it comes to the criminalization. Now, we also, though, have for all these years been working hand in hand with lots of different people, different organizations when it comes to homeless and what to do with them, whether they are just in places where they cannot be, such as our city parks or on our sidewalks, or certainly we have an SOU team. We still have that team right now, has 4 officers. We're getting ready to very soon, I believe, with summer months coming, we're going to increase that team by 6 officers virtually all day. What they do is address any types of calls that come in regarding whether it's businesses or other things people are seeing or that are happening around the city. We try to address it as soon as possible. So we keep, even though patrol does what they can in between calls, it's the SOU team that really addresses the homeless issues. But as far as criminalization, as far as safety, again, it's the behavior of the person which dictates whether it's a crime or not just simply being homeless.
I'll come back for your next item, which is talking about demographics and some of the challenges that we have in getting a count of the number of people who are experiencing homelessness. Previously, prior to the pandemic, so the last count was in 2020, that was called the point-in-time count. It was through all home King County at the time. And then in 2021 and 2022, the count didn't happen in the same way that it has in the past. The King County Regional Homelessness Authority, which is that new entity with Seattle and King County and covers all of King County. They're responsible for the count. Because of the pandemic, they did a slightly different methodology this year, and I didn't see the results. I know that they've submitted some things to HUD, and I would expect some reports coming out soon. But if you haven't gone to their website, I would encourage you to go to their website. They do have a dashboard that will show data on system utilization. I pulled just a couple pieces. The latest data was February of 2022, so the last day of February, and it had a total of 9,093 people. Just over 5,000 were being served in shelter. Over 2,000 were unsheltered, and 1,600 with unknown housing status. That's only looking at people who are either sheltered or unsheltered. And then they have some demographic data there as well. So it doesn't get us at what we're often looking for, which is the need. So what's the scope of the need for services to address homelessness? It's a starting point. Even when we had the point in time count, we know that it wasn't reflective of the experience in the community. It was completed overnight. We certainly don't get to all the areas in the county, let alone individual cities. So we had some ongoing challenges with that count data and how it reflected what was needed in the system to serve people, and then the support services that go with it. But that's just like a quick update on that status. There isn't necessarily a great solution at this time, but there will be a count that resumes in 2023. So that number is, yes. So Councilmember Norton asked if people who are sleeping in their cars or, families, doubling up. So if a family is staying with another family or an individual is, potentially. So this data is specifically going to be anybody who is accessing a formal service, not school district, but a formal service, and is in the system that's called the Homelessness Management Information System, or HMIS. So it's a very specific data set. It doesn't give us the whole scope. One thing, just talking about school district, it's a great question and something that we should talk about, is a lot of our homeless services will be looking at HUD definitions of homelessness and something called literally homeless. So they're looking for on the street, living in places not meant for habitation. Typically, we won't see people be eligible for all the housing services if they're doubled up or staying with a friend or family. And for McKinney-Vento data with school district, they do include those categories. So our young people are able to access services when they're in unstable housing in a different way than say individuals who are on the street and not tied to the school. But that way they're staying engaged in school and have more opportunity there. So slightly different definitions.
Okay, I see that we have a question on the chat for Sarah. Sai, if you will please just state your question, and you guys make certain that you bring your questions as well. Again, folks are here live and direct, but we also want to make certain that we see you and we answer your questions there on the Zoom.
My question was for the former speaker and Sarah. Stefan, since there's been a reduction in lower level crimes for young people being sent to the PAO, and King County shows that Federal Way has 2 of the top 20 zip codes where youth and young adults are at risk of being shot or killed from gun violence, what is being done to reallocate police resources to address those high risk zip codes for young people, since there's less crimes of other sort? That's my first question. And then my second question, Sarah, you said that they housed about 400 refugees in 6 months, and that's really quite good. We don't see local unhoused folks, especially BIPOC, be rehoused that quickly. So what do you think worked about that process, and how can we make some of that funding available, those types of funding available to local organizations to have those same type of outcomes?
So I'll take the first question on what are we doing as far as reallocating police resources. The first thing that I'll say is we were provided with 13 additional officers this year, and we're in the process of hiring them. And what that does for us is it allows us to staff our specialties, such as I mentioned earlier, SOU, being able to put more people on there. It also allows us to do more emphasis, and that's something that we've been doing. We've been very fortunate to be able to have an emphasis going really for quite some time. About the last year or so, we had it going on through the winter months. And what that means is we, through our crime analysis, we determine areas of the city which we feel would benefit from having additional officers at certain times of the day. So we take all that data and break it down, and then we hire extra duty officers during those times to patrol those areas. And we have found that when we direct patrols such as that, it does have a dramatic effect. It generally takes a period of time for either the businesses or the neighborhoods or wherever the location might be in the city to find out that that is what's being done. And it does have an effect on, I don't have exact numbers in front of me, but it does have an effect on crime in that area. And it's not just juveniles either, it's just crime in general. And so the reallocation is that. I will tell you also that as we're hiring these officers, the chief has a plan that not just SOU is going to be bumped up, but our other units, our specialty units, are going to be getting additional staffing so that we can continue with that. One of the things that I think has one of the most dramatic effects on crime, especially in our, what I'm going to call our downtown region at different types of the day, is to have officers on bicycles. We have purchased not just the regular bicycles, but some electric bicycles and that sort of thing, so that those officers can get around the inner city, if you will, quickly and address issues as they pop up. The other thing that bicycle and foot patrol does is it makes the officers more accessible to whether it's the citizenry, whether it's businesses, that sort of thing. It just kind of puts them out there where more communication can take place. And then at the same time, hopefully we will continue to reduce crime in those types of areas.
And I'll try to address parts of your questions, good questions. So the programs are very different. The program for the Afghan refugees was not funded in the same sources as homeless services. They worked with the International Rescue Committee. I believe that was the primary contract that King County had a contract with, although they may have worked with additional relocation entities that work with our refugees and immigrants. So they have a different kind of investment, actually less investment than our homeless services system. So it was a smaller population coming in, very targeted in like that intake process and then being able to transition out. In terms of homeless services and seeing that same kind of an investment, that's part of what King County is trying to do with Health Through Housing. King County Regional Homelessness Authority is new entity and trying to look at equity. You mentioned, well, I don't know how you phrased it, but when we look at our people who are experiencing homelessness in King County, we see disparities based on race. And that's just something that is very true. You mentioned it in your question, Sai. And the Regional Homelessness Authority is looking at ways to address that with services. But they're trying to increase the funding that is available right now and couple that with housing and shelter as well.
Gotcha. So will community be a part of figuring out or being able to inform how the funding goes locally? And then for your colleague, Stefan, are there going to be any community members on those hiring panels for the new officers?
I will just say that the King County Regional Homelessness Authority has public meetings. So their meetings are similar to city meetings, open and public, and they have a number of different committees that I would encourage people to engage with, where you can talk about those issues with them. And that would be the best way to have that kind of impact on services. Health Through Housing is not through the Regional Homelessness Authority, so that's with King County, and the same would be true with King County as well.
So I'll address the hiring issue. Our ongoing hiring is through civil service. And so the process itself, we utilize a public safety testing, which are the people that do the initial tests, if you will. What happens then, they do the written test, the physical tests, all those sorts of things. And then they submit, the people that test submit names for the departments where they might want to work. We get those names, we look at the scores, and then we set up oral board processes in-house. It's all the oversight is civil service. We don't have boards or panels other than police personnel who are in these oral board processes, and that's how the hiring processes are done.
All right, we got a question here in the house, and then Teresa, I see you. So after we hear this question, Teresa, you're next.
Hi, my name is Juan Juarez. I have a question. I'm wondering about additional officers towards public schools. A few weeks ago, I was attempted robbed at my school at Thomas Jefferson High at gunpoint. It was not that far from the school, and I wasn't offered any help from any school officials or anything. I was wondering, what will the city do about this as a minor? And of course, what happened recently at Texas? This is not acceptable.
So without knowing the circumstances, I have no idea what your case was, but there's Thomas Jefferson is very unique. We have a school resource officer inside Thomas Jefferson High School, but anything that happens there criminally and outside of school is King County. So that is different, if you will, from, let's say, Federal Way High School, where whether it happened on campus or off campus, Federal Way Police would handle that. But without knowing the circumstance of your case, I have no idea how King County is handling that particular case.
Brother, I'm so sorry to hear that you went through that, but let's make certain that you know where to go to find out what next, what steps are needed to make you safe. In a climate like this, we want all of our children going to schools and coming back home. Okay. Mama Teresa Indahosa, please, what's your question?
Thank you, Shalee. You working that name, girl. Thank you. Hi, everybody. This is Tirza Idahosa. And I have a question for, I think it's the chief. My question is, based on the climate of America right now, how are you doing any different in your hiring process as far as your training? What are you doing different? I mean, everybody's crying out for change. It doesn't sound like you guys are doing anything other than continuing to hiring officers the same way you always have. What are you doing different to make sure we get a different type of quality of police officer, and that they understand the difference, what it really means to protect and to serve, not just come in ready to fight, you know? And again, this community has constantly spoken out against this accreditation training that Federal Way has been so proud of. The community is not so much. So I'm wondering, what are you guys doing different, given that the community has been crying out? We want to know what kind of training, what different training. And me as a former correctional officer with police training, I understand the difference and I understand the testing. And I'm wondering, what are you guys doing different? And can you explain that, please?
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of things that are being done differently and have been over the last several years. And the thing about police training is it evolves. It's a very living process, if you will. And so what happens is these different things that happen, evolution of our communities, of things going on around the country, those are taken into account. And it really starts with the hiring. We are trying and constantly have been for years to hire a more diverse workforce, and you probably are aware of the amount of diversity that we've been able to attain, in particular with female officers. I'd say probably over the last 2 years, I'd say we probably have 50% more females as far as hiring that we have had in years past. The thing about the training is it right after the hiring, the academy is the one that really is out there looking at the different things that are going on in not just in our own climate right here locally, but around the nation, and national practices, what they call best practices, if you will, but that's kind of a generic term. So then on top of that, what we do is we have been really collaborating with different kinds of speakers and trainers that come in on occasion. Some of it is done over a system as we're talking on tonight. Others are people that come into the police department and provide training. We just went through some of that training just in this last month is one of our training sessions. So those are the things that we are doing. It's constant. I think most police departments you will find are doing those things now, trying to make sure that we're trying to keep up with all of the changes that are going on. And the other thing that happens that is a constant is the fact that, yes, with all the laws have been going back and forth and changing, and we have to make sure that we're keeping up with that by bringing in our prosecutors and different law people to talk about that, to ensure that we're applying it as it is correct for the time, and to make sure that when things change, that information gets out to our officers so that they are aware of those types of things. So I think the change is constant. I think there's been a tremendous change. I know there has been in I'm going to say the last 4 or 5 years in the type of training that the officers are getting, whether it's de-escalation, whether it's crisis training, whether all of those things are now mandatory in our training criteria for our police officers.
I appreciate that answer. I'm a more factual based person. So is there someone else we should be talking to who actually is making sure that they're getting diversity training, cultural training, not so just de-escalation with, arms, but conversations and understanding the communities that they're dealing with? I'm talking about that type of training. And if you're not the person,
Yeah,
to ask,
that's
maybe we
me.
could have somebody that can bring back those factual, so we know exactly, the training that's really happening.
Yeah, that's me. I oversee the support services division of the police department as the deputy chief over that. And I oversee the hiring and training and all of those things that we're talking about. So I can tell you that those classes, as I say, on all the things that you said, are taking place, and they are mandatory for all of our police officers to have.
Tirza, I hear you. Did I say it right? I hear you loud and clear. We want to have actual details of what that looks like. So know that during the community portion, we'll come back to this so we can dive deeper, way, way, way deeper into what that looks like. How is the training impacted? What does that look like for here in Federal Way? So we're just going to table that part of it, and we'll come back. Next, though, I do want Brian to give us an update, because we got to talk about Juneteenth. It's right around the corner. And so we need to find out where the city is, how we can plug in with the Federal Way Black Collective to make certain the event is successful.
All right. Okay, so Shlee mentioned this earlier, but just to double up on the dates and time. So the flag raising ceremony is on Friday the 17th. Juneteenth is the actual day is on the Sunday, the 19th. The federal holiday, I think, is the following Monday, but we're going to do it on a day when everyone is around, hopefully. And we're going to do that the Friday before, again, the 17th at noon, right out there. We're also, the following day on Saturday, we'll be at the Federal Way Farmers Market from 9 to 3. And then have a Juneteenth walk on the actual holiday on Monday from 10 to 3, starting at the BPA Trail, starting at Celebration Park up by 324th. That is 10 a.m. on Saturday. Next item is yours, but I'm just so I don't have to adjust the mic, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Are you okay with that? Okay, very good. Childcare. There was a request for funding through the American Rescue Plan Act in which the city received millions of dollars for community aid. And one of the requests that we received was for childcare, both in terms of education and outreach, but actual provision. And just to give an update on that, we have a subcommittee of the council that's working on the list of requests that the city has received. It's more than we have money for. So we're having to decide which ones to forward, which ones to maybe address at a later date. The council is planning to come with a first formal approval at their first meeting in July is the goal right now. So I can't really give you an update on this specific item, other than I can tell you, at least at this point, that it has not been taken off the agenda or off the funding list. But I can't confirm that it would be funded because we need a full council to say that. But the subcommittee, what's that? Almost, that's right, yes. So that's an update on the childcare funding through the ARPA funds. The next item on the mayor's update is the methadone clinics, what the city's process for that. So in our code, methadone clinic is a medical clinic. It doesn't distinguish whether you're treating with methadone or aspirin. It's a medical clinic in our code. So we would consider it a medical office, and there are provisions for medical offices to be located in the city. Most recently, there was a proposal for a medical clinic. I'll call it the medical clinic. It just happened to be treating with methadone. But there was a proposal for a medical clinic to be located in a mobile unit, in which it was, they go away every day and then they come back, and kind of the nature of that, where they are there during the day but not there during the night. And the code has limitations on at what point does that become a permanent use. And the proposal that we had that was coming in, it sort of crossed that threshold and it had to be regarded as a permanent use. But you'll see things around town like bloodmobiles or other things where it's there for a short period of time, and those fall under the city's code limitation of a temporary use. So, but just to be clear on that, if you're a full-fledged methadone clinic going into a building, we would look at it as a medical clinic and treat it like any other medical clinic that we've approved before. Chief, do you want to talk about the next on the agenda is the Park 16 discussions? Would you mind hopping back on for that one?
Sure. Is there something specific about it that?
I think there was some discussions had with the recent uptick in calls for service, and in discussion with the management. I don't know if you were part of that or not.
Well, yeah, certainly we have ongoing discussions with the management of Park 16. I think we have a pretty good relationship with them and different things that go on there. And whether it's a serious crime or whether it's just crime in general, that is one of the areas that I spoke about earlier that we pay close attention to, that we make sure that we're responsive to Park 16 and the different things that go on there. So we have systems, if you will, in place with them so that they can report to us, or they can have meetings with us, or that we can patrol through there in order to mitigate criminal activity that's there. It can be something as such as fights that go on. It can be more serious incidents, which certainly we have had there. But I think what it comes down to is our relationship and communication with each other to try to, first of all, mitigate things that go on there, but at the same time, when things do happen, that we provide resources to try to identify the people that are involved and take the appropriate action.
Thank you. And I'll just add to that, just building off what the deputy chief said. Recently, there had been a lot of calls for service to Park 16, and it was concerning residents both in the complex and nearby. And so, to the chief's point, rather than just simply wait for a call saying, hey, there's something going on, for the police to respond, we proactively engage the management of Park 16 to see what the city could do to be a resource to the management company to help mitigate some of the things that the chief brought up about some of the incidents that were happening there. Let me get you a mic. Can you hold on 1 second?
I just want to say about Part 16, we're doing an event there this Saturday. Stop the Violence event, Progress Pushers. So we want to welcome the community, welcome everyone that wants to come out between 1 and 4. We're gonna have games, food. What else we're having?
Awareness to youth violence and homelessness at the same time, and trying to bring enlightenment to our youth and bring some self-awareness to the youth to let them know there's other options besides the route of violence. And so just one, yeah, any support would be helpful.
Yeah. When is that again?
Saturday, this Saturday between the time of 1 and 4.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is for the chief, how do we make certain that residents don't feel the police presence as if they are being kind of watched all the time? My understanding is that in Park 16, any of the crimes and the violence that we're seeing, it's actually not from the residents who are living there, it's from folks who are coming inside. And so although the residents want protection, what is the police department doing to make certain that it's more of a relationship with the actual residents versus making the residents feel like they are the actual and going home where it's not comfortable? So I'd love to hear what the police department is doing just in building community relationships with Park 16 residents. And then after you answer that question, Lamont, you'll have a chance to ask your question. We'll give you a mic. Chief, if you can explain that, please.
Yeah, that's a great comment, because that is something that we have observed as well. It isn't necessarily the people that live in these communities or at Park 16 that are always the ones that are responsible for the crime that's committed there. And so what we try to do is make our crime analysts and our other crime prevention people, we have a great rapport. Lindsay Sperry does with Park 16 and the management and that sort of thing, to try to come up with proactive things to do to keep violence or the people that are living there safe. One of the things some of the things we discussed, number one is to have security. It's not police, but it's the security that they have on site that knows the residents and what's going on there, that can call if something happens. It's trying to limit access at different times of the day, depending on types of criminal behaviors that happen there. But you're correct. It is a fine line that we try to walk to make sure that we're there to address criminal activity and those that are committing it, and at the same time trying to make the people that live there not feel intimidated by the police, or that they are just constantly being watched by police. But it is a fine line. It's a hard thing to do. So we're trying to do these other things to develop a rapport and to make sure that we're working with other organizations such as Progress Pusher that just spoke, to make sure that we're trying to work with organizations to try to keep the people safe, but also hold the criminals accountable.
Pardon me. Peace and blessings to everybody. So basically, I guess my question would be more so based around like funding, because we're talking about like a lot of police involvement and things of that nature. Shout out to Project Progress Pushers for the good work that you guys are doing and whatnot. So can you, or who would I talk to about explaining like ARPA funding and what that was for? Because I know somebody has spoke on the ARPA funding as far as like homelessness or something like that, but what was that funding? And so I just want to be clear, like where it went and what's being done, and make sure that the resources are being spread out, because we definitely want to be proactive beforehand as far as it not getting to the police. You know what I'm saying? Like entrepreneur training, things of this nature, going into the community. We gave a presentation to the city council as far as like using the buildings, the community center, things of this nature, having access to the resources that the city has as far as, and so there's a lot of like, you know, we know there's money being thrown around and whatnot, and there's a lot of people getting stuff, and we just want to make sure that, you know, the resources are equally spread out.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, thank you for the question, and I appreciate the the request for clarification. So the money has not gone to the childcare proposal yet.
How much was it? I'm sorry, just to figure out what.
Three? I thought it was 300. I thought it was around 300,000, I think. I could look it up and talk to you afterwards, but it has we still have about there's and I can't remember but we got 19 million total. We have spent some on 19 million, yes, for total. And there's different categories that we have to.
Because you said 300,000, what, because
Yeah, there's
19 million is way different from
Yeah,
300,000. So I'm just trying to figure out.
yes. So that's the total. Some of it's for capital, some of it's for other programs. For social services, it's right around 3 million is what is the pot that we're talking about. So it would be 300,000 of the 3 million, I guess is a better way of looking at it. But 19 was provided for us to look at for, capital expenditures or anything else that the city was impacted by, that was helped the city out as a result of COVID. But to your question about where has the money gone, very few dollars of that $3 million has been spent yet. So we're going through the list because, like I said, we got more requests than we have money for it. So that one is still on there, and we're in July, like I mentioned, that would be when it would get the go ahead to go through some kind of review or application process.
Yep. Where can I find the breakdown of the ARPA
Yeah,
funds?
I'll get it. I'll get it.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. And then real quick, as far as what is the city's plan to actually, because I know you're partnering with Progress, but can we, what is the city's plan as far as like, can we get access to buildings,
Yeah.
things of that nature, and other funding? Because like I know you guys got some,
Yeah, so the second part of your question was access to buildings, and that is a question that has been asked before, and we're working on a way to get you there, but I don't have an answer yet. There's some hoops we're having to jump through, but yes, we have heard the request, and I can tell you that we're working on it. So the question was, how do organizations like us get funding? Do you want to?
Saturday, we funded the whole event.
Yeah. I'm gonna. Sorry. Yeah.
So as part of the rescue plan, that 3 million that Brian was referencing is a request. So it's being considered by council for community social services, and there would be an application process. There are some proposals that we would need that have come in already that we'd need additional information because this is tied to federal funds. And that process hasn't been determined yet, but we do have a listserv. It's available on the city's website. We can get that directly to you as well and get that sent out. And that's good for all of our grant applications. We use the same listserv for any funding that we put out. We'll also have, I'm gonna take the moment, we'll have capital funding that's separate from rescue plan this summer as well.
We've got a question in-house, and then as soon as we get this from the councilwoman, we'll also get you Trinice Rogers next. So you're right after the councilwoman.
I think the question that I'm hearing here from the public is, what is the application process? Right? And so maybe, is it too late to apply for the 3 million? And
It is not too late. That council still has to allocate the rescue plan funds. So there are a lot of details, including the final dollar amount that would go to something like social service. And then I see a lot of our council here. We've also talked about grant writing and trying to access other funds to make that like even go further. But so no details on that process.
All right, Trinice.
Hi, good evening. I had a question for Brian. He mentioned capital projects. I currently serve as co-chair on the King County Participatory Budgeting committee, and right now we're actively engaging in the participatory budgeting process. Unfortunately, City of Federal Way is not part of that process. We are focused on East King County, which is considered, we're focused on East Federal Way, which is considered King County. I'm just curious in terms of like capital projects, how prepared or willing is the City of Federal Way willing to engage in a participatory budgeting process? And, you know, as we all know, the PB process, it's like an integral part of racial equity. And I'm hearing a lot of conversation from our community. It sounds like they're ready and willing and wanting something along the lines of participatory budgeting. So how willing or prepared are we as a city? I'm hearing, was it 300 towards childcare, and that's coming from a pot of maybe, like you said, 19 million, was it, or 9 million?
3 million.
3 million, okay. Well, even 3 million, there is room, there's an opportunity there, right? So I'm sure you're familiar, Brian, right, with the PB process. I'm very much excited about our city engaging in this opportunity. Again, it's going to definitely cater and offer and foster the spirit of racial equity. So where are we as a city?
I just have to learn how to do this, and I don't know. Okay. So we don't have participatory budgeting, but there is, and I can only speak to our social services. So whatever, if there's an allocation through council, we have built into that process community engagement for setting priorities that will include anybody who wants to come into those conversations, so that those funds are meeting the needs of community members in Federal Way. So it might not be as in-depth of a process as participatory budgeting like King County is doing, but we will have community engagement in that process. And then our Human Services Commission is likely to be a part of the evaluation, as is the process that engages residents in the City of Federal Way who are on that committee. We're always looking for commissioners. So if you're interested, that's another way to get involved.
Well, Sarah, the only reason why I mentioned PB process is because being part of this process is very likely that the residents of Federal Way will definitely benefit from this upcoming process. And so, you know, we're partnering with 4 other cities in King County, and there are cities who have actually actively and successfully engaged in PB process. And so I think there's a great potential here for our city to do the same.
Thank you, Trinice. All right, Sai, I see you. You have a question?
Yeah, it's mainly for you, Sarah. Well, and I guess council too. Is there a way to make a commitment to local contracting equity? Like, I'm glad that King County is moving towards participatory budgeting, but they also have a long history of not funding in municipality or in district businesses and service providers, and importing and migrating service providers who neither live there nor provide services historically there. So would it be possible to have a local contracting equity commitment made by council and through the process?
We can certainly talk about, you know, what our process is and if there are improvements that can be made, but I wouldn't be able to do that this evening.
My question was more about, I know we was talking about finance, but about facilities. I know you kind of brought that up, but coming with the summer, I know we talked about crime, you know, summer's coming, school's ending, and now more kids out in public, right? So organizations like ours that are trying to be in community access those kids, sometimes not having a place to go. You know, some kids, you'll say at Boys and Girls Clubs, but those things cost. So in some communities, that's okay, right? But for some people, and especially us, trying to do the work, but not even being able to access facilities, a gym in Federal Way, let alone, you know, somewhere to do group. So
So I'm going to invite you to come to a meeting next Thursday if you're available from 6 to 8. at the Pyramid Mason Lodge. I am renting a room there with my own money. And I have, there's been a group of people that have been meeting, and this is exactly what we're working on, but it's outside of the city. It's community based, because I think that we need to figure this out and work with ourselves and help ourselves. It's at the Mason Lodge. And if you get a hold of me on the phone, I will give you specific directions, because if you haven't been there, it's really hard to find. But my point is, this is exactly what I'm trying to do. And well, we, not me, but the group, and Lamont is a part of that. And he's instrumental. He's like the person that started it. And Jesse Johnson was also one of the people who started it. He just hasn't been coming. There's Jesse. Why haven't you been coming? And then there's also people from other parts of the community who are there, who are from conservative groups. So it's been really nice that want to help and want to participate and help the youth. And so that's what we're focusing on right now, is youth. We've got you guys, they need something to do. There's nothing to do here. When I was a kid, we went and danced every weekend. There was underage dance places. Like, we could do karaoke, we could do all kinds of stuff. But I'm just saying, I like karaoke, but I'm just saying there's lots of activities. And what I'm trying to do right now is to get some kids to volunteer to help senior citizens. And then that's just something to do. Go help them, go do something, go help them change their clocks. They can't lift their hands above their head. They need help moving a box from here to there, that kind of thing. So that's what I was going to do, is have some senior citizens come next week, meet up with some kids and say, hey, maybe you guys could pair up. Yes, the whole point of this is to help our community and our kids. So if you guys, that's why I gave you my card, is so I could ask you guys to come. So anybody who wants to come, please come. And my contact information is on the city website. And I'm going to be rude and leave early, because I've got to get up at like 5. But I just want to let everybody know, if you want to come, please come. Everyone's welcome. And it's downstairs in the Mason Lodge, and my husband will probably be standing outside going, hey, it's over here. And it's from 6 to 8. Okay.
And then Brian, if you can just let us also know what the city is doing for our city buildings, which we pay for. How is that making certain that it's serving the needs of the community? Brian.
Right, and I was a little vague before, and I'll try to be a little bit more specific, but it's still going to be vague, just as a fair warning. So what we're trying to do is, a lot of our buildings, like the community center, for example, is very popular. It's booked, and so we're trying to find ways where we can maybe double up on facilities to create more space for the things like you're talking about. So that's the best answer I can give you at this point, that we're working on it, but we're working through things that have already been booked and reserved for the buildings. So I will get back to you. And then before I leave the topic of ARPA, I just want to be clear on something, and that is that for some of the social services disbursements that we're talking about, we will have an application process. So in fairness to everyone, we will have an opportunity we'll publish in the paper, we'll make sure that this group and others are plugged into that application process, so that everyone is aware and we're all operating from the same playing field. What has happened is that some organizations have caught wind that the city has a whole bunch of money now, and so they've just sent proposals directly to the mayor's office, and that's why we have kind of an idea of what some of the requests are, but there's been no decision on, yeah, we want to fund that, and here you go. There's going to be an application process that everyone will have access to, and we'll make sure that it's well publicized. So I just want to be clear on that. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, there's some restrictions that go along with that. Yes.
The police department get more funding than local organizations.
why did they get more?
Why? Yeah.
That was a priority that was determined at the time that we needed more. We needed a stronger presence of law enforcement. And I think the chief talked about that when they brought on more officers, it wasn't just to have people out there with, you know, handcuffs ready to go. It was to
Right.
do outreach. It was to provide more patrols, which he was mentioning reduce some of the incidents of incarceration just by having patrols so that there's not as much.
So more police, less crime is what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yeah.
Oh. And does the data support that?
Well, again,
It does? I was just reading that also, yeah. Like such a small, another question, how many juveniles was arrested in Federal Way? How many juveniles
How
was
many
arrested?
juveniles?
Yeah, maybe is the chief of, is he on?
Yeah, I can tell you, so I have data going back 7 years, but I can tell you that so far in 2022, 30.
30?
Yeah.
Can I ask another question? And how many of those was non-black or non-people of color, should I say?
I don't have that type of data in front of me here. That's something that would easily be obtained. I don't have it here tonight, though.
And how would we access that?
You could just ask, and then it would be a matter of our crime analysts going into our Spillman data, our records management system, and pulling that out.
So
And as far as this year, I'll just add that is data that we have year by year. Of course, so far we're just into May, so it would just be 5 months worth.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Can we, do we know if that is a correlation of the police doing a good job, or is that due to the rise of community influence that has maybe been a cause of the influx of numbers to go down? Is there any evidence or data supporting that? And why would the police get all the credit?
I don't know that the police are looking for all the credit. I think that certainly we see organizations such that are here tonight, and there's many others. I think it's a combination of these things, but what I think is it's really a collaborative community thing that everybody has a part to play. And as far as, you know, some things are hard to calculate, such as how much of an impact does one particular group have? How much of an impact do the police have? I think it's a culmination of all that. But the way I look at it is that if crime is being reduced, and I'll have to say one of the topics that I'm speaking about is the juveniles. I'd say if it's being decreased, that's what I'm happy about.
Okay, so we've got 3 more things on the mayor's update. I'm going to tackle these next 2 together. One is the economic development manager position update and the black-owned banks update. So the first one, economic development manager position update. So some of you may have known Tim Johnson, who is our economic development director. He left for a administrative position in Oregon. And so we have a vacancy there now in economic development. And we went out initially with an announcement and got a good pool of applicants. And we scheduled to interview a good batch. The ones that the review team really liked, they had found other jobs right before the interview was scheduled. And so we interviewed the other ones, and they were good candidates, but we didn't feel that they were that we needed to do a little bit better. And so we have retained a search firm to go out again, and that will go out next week. And we will be we expect, if the timing goes well and we get some good candidates, then we should have someone in place by August. So the reason the next one goes along with that, black-owned banks, is I believe that he was working on that. Do you have anything on that to add? Or okay, all right. So stay tuned on that one then. More info to come on that one. Yes, Black-owned banks. That's, so it's getting data on, yeah, initiative, yes. He along with others, yes, yeah. And then finally was school board meetings, and there was in our agenda setting meetings, there was a request to encourage participation and attendance at the Federal Way Public Schools board meetings. And so that's the message. We want to encourage you to attend those meetings, and much like you're here today at the city, also attend the school board meetings and engage in that important endeavor as well. That's all I have for, yeah, Lamont.
Yeah, just real quick. So I just wanted to clarify, like, I mean, I joke about the city having money only because I saw some funding and I saw it being tossed around. And we were actually very instrumental in saving the city money when we got out of SCORE. And I just saw like how they spent it like the same day that they got out of it. They had already spent it before we could even, like, you haven't even gotten it yet, you know, the savings and whatnot. And so I think what needs to be looked at, and I think a lot of people said is invest in the community. Like, we don't have to be struggling for money. Like, we don't have to depend on these grants. It just so happened that we found out that, you know, the city was getting them. You know, these buildings have been here. You know, Center Stage was getting, or they managed Knudsen for 9 years. They were getting $100,000 a year in a free building for 9 years. This is not like, I didn't make this up. You see what I'm saying? And so we really want the city to be a better city. We think that we have the potential to be the leaders in the area, right? And so we're trying to work with the city to figure out where are these shortcomings coming from, and how do we bring in revenue for the city. And so I think a lot of the people here, you know, should know how the city brings in money, you know, what they bring in as far as grants and things of this nature, and just more transparency is really what it is, and working with the city. And so, you know, as you guys say, you just stated that we should work or go to the school board meetings. The city should work more with the school board, the police, and all of this stuff should be, it goes hand in hand. These kids are not, like, this bullying thing is real. And so it spills over from the schools into, I just was at Decatur. I can't even say the stuff that's going on, right? And so, like, it goes from, and I wonder, like, how much of it gets swept under the rug, right? So because they're minors, because they're, you know, I don't know, I guess expected to act like this, you know what I'm saying? Then we look at the solution as a criminal one, when really we could do a better job working together as a community. You see what I'm saying? And so, you know, these buildings are here. I think leaving from this meeting, I think we want to know what those processes are, what we have, what is available to us, and we're here to work with the city.
Yes, thank you for that. So on the funding, I appreciate your comments on that, and it's great that tonight we have both present here and online. We have the city policymakers present, because a lot of what you're talking about are policy type decisions. We were joking before the meeting, maybe not appropriately so, but there's four here tonight, which is a quorum, and so they could make decisions here tonight and be on our way. But that's wasn't advertised to do so. Wasn't on the agenda. But to your point, yes, those are good things to bring up when especially as we're entering the budget season, because we do budget every 2 years, and this is a year that we're doing that. So it's good to have that input as well. And I will get back to you on the building question as well. That's it. How about, sorry, go ahead.
We're not done yet. No, we're not done yet. Erica, I see your hand is up, so we're going to get to you. But first, I just want to make certain, earlier we heard of participatory budget. And then we just heard it's the budget season. Can we get more detail? How do we make certain, for instance, we heard earlier that police got funding to hire 13 more officers because that was the priority. how do we make certain that when we have questions from the community that says, actually, we've been working really well and we've brought down crime, and how come police officers are getting all of that credit? And by credit, we mean they're getting the funding to do that portion, but we're out in the community and we don't have no money to do it, right? So I heard the response of, we've got to make certain that we are at the table when we're making budget decisions, equitable inside of the building. The word Aaron had said, equitable. It's equitably distributed. What is the process specifically? How do we, before decisions are made, how are we able to come at the front end and as communities say, this is our priority and this is where we want to make certain that budget is being allocated? What's that?
So all the budget meetings are advertised and open to the public. And if you haven't participated before, I encourage you to come out. Those will likely take place in the fall of this year. We'll make sure that this group is connected with those dates, in addition to just, advertising like we normally do in the paper and online, to make sure that word gets out to this group to know when you can come to those meetings. There's full council meetings, and then there's council committee meetings where the budget's discussed. So there's many meetings that talk about the budget, and you can come to that. The budget is, it varies every year, but it's hovers around 140 million. So we have a lot of different interests, a lot of different assets that we're trying to maintain. Our roads alone are billions of dollars in assets. So there's lots of different interests out there, tugging and pulling for priority. So it's really important as we get into those budget discussions that you also attend as well, to make sure that your input is heard and considered. So again, this fall is when those meetings take place, and there's specific information as we get closer to having budgets ready. There's a lot of work that goes into the budget. So once we have that lined up and then a definite schedule, then we'll make sure that this group is aware of that. Yeah, so the question is the police automatic in the budget? A lot of things in order to keep them funded. I don't know if automatic is the right word, but they've been funded for years and years. And so over the years, there have been new programs that the city has added that go beyond even programs within the police department. But there's been other things that we've added in terms of programs and staffing over the years. And that's been a result of the budgeting process. So that's definitely something to attend and make your voice heard.
There ever be a budget that the organization is also in there with the police?
I'm sorry.
Automatic? Would there be a time that, an organization like us would be in that budget, that we don't have to go try to get grants or use our own money to do different events? We're in the budget like the police is in the budget.
Yeah, so as far as social service, I might ask Sarah to come up after I'm done here, but we fund many different organizations that provide services to the city, because we're in that arena. We're not good service providers. There's many organizations that existed out there that can do it way better, and so we fund them, and we have many that apply every year that are not automatically funded, but they all have the same evaluation criteria, because the programs, people leave and come, and then the effectiveness of the organization changes over time. So we just don't want to automatically give it to them. We make sure that they're still meeting the criteria, and a lot of our funding is restricted. Like, it has certain guidelines that we have to meet, and then go back, and after it's spent, make sure that it was spent in the right way. So that's the best way to access that is through that application process that we have, rather than us every time just without question automatically, as you say, just because there's monitoring involved with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Erica. And then after Erica, I see you, Lynn French. Just directly ask your question after Erica has received her answer to her question. Erica.
Thank you, Sister Shalee. So my question is for the city. I'm curious to know, what is the city doing in terms of partnering with community organizations and/or our school district to provide adequate mental health resources to our young people, particularly young people of color, African-American youth. I'm thinking of a young man also who stood up tonight to talk about how he was confronted by someone who was holding a gun. That's a really serious concern. And I kind of feel like we glossed over that a bit. I'd really like to hear some more specifics about, are there existing partnerships right now between those three entities to help our youth right now? And especially within, in mind, I'm thinking also about, the school shootings that we've all been trying to process, and that's been so painful to see in the past few days. Thank you for answering my question.
We'll get better at that. So lots of questions there. Really important because we do know that mental health of our young people is impacted by many things. COVID is a large part of that right now, but it's ongoing. We do have our competitive grant application process. I think currently the only organization that had applied and received funding was Valley Cities for a school-based mental health program. We looked at the potential of pursuing a grant with the school district, and they were very amenable to that. Timing didn't work out for that application. That would have been looking at mental health services in school. It's something that they'll revisit next year. So we're trying with those partnerships. I'll just comment that in general, it's come to my attention that mental health services for young people, that a lot of our providers are not able to staff right now, and they're actually not taking new clients. I don't know if that's still the case, but a couple of weeks ago that was true. So we know that this is a big need, and I think that needs to be part of the conversation that we're having and how we look at our funding and responding to community.
Actually, maybe Representative Johnson, Taylor, or Claire. I know that at the state level, Anye Abiye and Denisha Abiye, they got funding, secured the funding, state funding for the Tubman Wellness Center to be housed here in Federal Way.
I can say that in our K-12 funding, Chalet, that we were able to fund additional dollars for social emotional support, for counselors, for social workers, for additional staff, to where the funding directly goes to those that are working with scholars and students on that social emotional support vein. So the dollars are targeted in particular to that group because of the increased needs. And then I bet Rep. Taylor can speak about just the investments that have gone in to the greater state, but K-12 spent a lot of time and has put money in that because we know young people are hurting.
Yes, I would add that we are making significant investments statewide, and specifically, we want to make sure that Federal Way and South King County are applying for these funds. In expansion of the workforce. I mean, when we have a workforce shortage in mental health services, it affects us all. And that also means that we have to increase the rate parity in terms of the compensation for the providers to, help retain their staff, and make sure that the organizations have the flexibility to address part of the continuum, which is outreach services and other services that actually help folks get in the door and have the resources they need on an everyday basis. And then working with local leaders to ensure that we can cite some facilities that need to be in specific regions so it's easier for folks to access the resources. We have very similar challenges in accessing resources in terms of how long it takes for someone to get to a facility that is similar in terms of length as Eastern Washington. So if you think about someone who's in a rural area and it takes an hour to get to services, we could be in the same situation when you're trying to get to services in downtown Seattle on the bus. It could be an hour, 2 hours, or what have you. Don't try to have a job and live in Federal Way and work in Bellevue and think you're going to get to work in an hour and a half or less during rush hour. So we have to cite more resources that are closer to where people are needing them the most. And so working with the Department of Commerce, the behavioral health organizations at the state level, and really partnering with folks who are embedded in this community is going to be critical with that. And King County, I mean, that a lot of times we have a lot of folks who are frustrated with King County and how they make their decisions. But as we heard from Mr. Trinice earlier, participatory budget is like the first phase of influencing where resources go and how then they are implemented. So working not only at the very local level, municipal level, and the grassroots level, but working at the city, the county, the state, and of course, federal level. And I know Representative Smith, Congressman Smith is working on a number of resources from the federal level to deploy right into South King County.
Okay, it's really difficult to fund everything that everybody wants. And one of the things we need to know, and your question was very good, how do you get funded? And one of the things is we have to know what you need funded for instead of just how do you get funded. It's really important to have a plan. But the thing I would ask, how much money did our state representatives and senator bring to the community? We're talking about funding, which is great, but how much is available and how do we at Federal Way access it so we can pass it out to the people?
Yeah, what I can do is get those specific numbers, but in terms of capital projects, we funded millions of dollars directly into the district. And we can reference our the city council meeting where the legislators, myself, Jesse, and Senator Wilson provided I think an hour presentation on what we delivered for the community. And I'm happy to provide that that PowerPoint presentation. Again, there is state money that I would say that one of the challenges that we have in all the regions is who knows about what opportunity when it's available. Some of it is direct to community. And so if it's direct to community, we have an obligation as community leaders to work jointly to ensure that our community programs and services are applying for those funds. And if we can fill the gap in terms of making sure that they have the necessary capacity to do that, because sometimes they hear about it the day before it's due. And so, it's the making sure that we have a better communication process from the state level all the way to the local level. And I think that this city in particular is interested in having more engagement on the state level on resources, or at least I'm hopeful. I mean, I see, all of the folks here who are very much interested in serving our community deeply.
All right, Mr. French, you are the final question for the evening. Go ahead, ask your question.
Thank you. As a bit of background, on October 26th of 2021, the King County Council passed by unanimous vote of the King County Council a motion restoring race and gender conscious affirmative action practices for contracting and employment. Likewise, on January 7th and January 17th, Governor Inslee signed 2 executive orders which in effect restored affirmative action for contracting, employment, and admissions to state colleges and universities. I would like to know what is the city of Federal Way contemplating in terms of following the leads of the King County Council and the governor.
Thank you, Mr. French. The last part where you're talking about how the city could be like the King County Council, could you repeat the specifics of the last part of your question?
The question is, will the city of Federal Way restore race and gender conscious affirmative action practices in the areas of contracting and employment?
So I believe our contracting laws currently you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but our contracting laws do incorporate, we have to be fair, we have to advertise appropriately. We can't just handpick people without, the appropriate public announcement, but I'm perhaps misunderstanding your question.
Okay. I-200 eliminated affirmative action practices in the state of Washington in 1998. And that was eliminated in the areas of contracting, employment, and admissions to universities and colleges. So there may have been affirmative action targets and goals that agencies would strive to achieve for making sure that there was a fair and equitable distribution of contracts and jobs coming to minorities. What does Federal Way, and Federal Way followed I-200, so you've not been doing that for 23 years. So what now will the city of Federal Way do, given King County Council has already restored that for the council, for the county, and this governor has done the same with respect to the entire state.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the clarification. On this question, what I would suggest is if we could, all of our contracting laws are updated every year, so I don't have an answer for you at this moment. I would like to get back to you with a complete answer that answers your question, and if there's any areas that we need to incorporate, I'll get back to you as to what steps the city needs to take or where we're at currently that meets the criteria. But maybe this is a discussion that we could keep on the agenda as a parking lot to report back. Okay.
And if you like, I can share with you my copies of the council legislation as well as the governor's executive orders.
Yes, we want that. Yes. So really, Mr. French, because Federal Way Black Collective, we meet monthly. So we want to keep this on the agenda. Okay. So very, very good questions. We want all of that. Help us prepare so that then we can make certain when we come back to the table, not just at the quarterly meetings, y'all, we meet monthly, right? So we're going to pick up right where we left off with that. So to be continued, Mr. French. Sound good?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I said Mr. French was going to be the last question, and then lo and behold, we had some more. I see Allison Fine, I see Lakeisha Phillips Miller, and then Mama Tirza. And Jose, you will close us out, and then y'all, we just got to make certain that we're finished. Trinice is, oh, okay. Trinice, you're the last one. Okay, last one. And if you have more to say, then just know you got to come back to the Federal Way Black Collective monthly meeting. Okay, let that just be said that there's a lot of things going on here in the city that we need to continue to discuss. So first, we're going to have Allison just very briefly call and response, then Lucky, Tirza, Trinice.
Hi, well, in the past, that there's been an opportunity at these meetings for people who were not Black people to speak. I didn't see that on the agenda. Is this an appropriate time for me to ask a question or to speak?
Yep, I wouldn't have called on you. Absolutely.
Okay.
What's your question?
Great, cool. So I'm coming to you as a member of the Diversity Commission here. I'm the vice chair of the Diversity Commission. Tirza has also joined us, and Trinice is the chair. So I think I just said I was a vice president. I'm the vice chair. I just wanted to let you guys know, I believe you guys talked about Juneteenth. I was multitasking earlier. I apologize if I missed that part. But with Juneteenth, I did want to let you know that there has been a sort of conversation in the community about the fact that Federal Way Pride also flies our flag over City Hall during the month of June. And I wanted to just kind of update you on a personal level because I'm also the founder of Federal Way Pride. We are going to be asking the city likely to move our Pride to August because that's when we're going to be having our Pride event. Not just because it will then coincide with our Pride event, but also so we can always keep Juneteenth as the priority in June. That is going to be the ask that I have of the city when I talk to them later this week. And I wanted to update you on that. Also at the Diversity Commission, we have been doing a lot of discussion about how we can best support all the different cultures in our community and the events that they have, and really figuring out how we can be of service to events like Juneteenth. So I know we're coming up on that, and it's pretty much planned this year, but I hope to see more cohesive partnerships between the city, the Diversity Commission, and the community groups, including the Black Collective, for things like Juneteenth. So I just want to say that. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, thank you. Director Lakeisha.
Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see so many faces online and in the building. So I'm just waving and saying hello. First, I want to acknowledge the children and family in Texas. I know that everybody's been thinking about that, and safety is a huge topic. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And I also wanted to acknowledge the student in our room, Juan. My name is Lakeisha Phillips. I wear a lot of hats. I'm a mom, I'm a community member, and I do also sit on the Federal Way School Board. So I am going to follow up with you. You might get an email. So I just wanted you to know who I am before you get a random email, and make sure that we get you some support as much as possible. And then on the agenda, I know it talked about school board meetings, and that was actually a comment I made in one of the last Federal Way Black Collective monthly meetings. So I just wanted to expound. We would love to hear your voices at the school board. So if you go to the Federal Way Public Schools website, and you can look for the information, all of the information for our school board meetings are there. You actually get a copy of every document that the school board gets a copy. There is a link to the Zoom. So if you want to watch the meeting or listen into the meeting and see the slides in action, you can watch all of our meetings live. We do follow OPMA. There is public comment. And if you want to email over any comments ahead of time, you're more than welcome to do that. I also really quickly just wanted to highlight school is winding down. We are going into graduation season. So I'm excited. It will be one of our first in-person graduations in a while, but everything will be streaming. Let's see, what else? I think that is about it. But I am looking forward. The school board has actually reached out, and they are working with the city. So you will see a school board city kind of conversation coming up in the fall. We're really excited about, talking about some mutual things that we share, including the building of our new memorial field, how that impacts small businesses as we continue to build not only Memorial Field, but our new schools. And I just want to acknowledge and thank all the community-based organizations that have consistently shown up. I personally appreciate and encourage you to keep coming to meetings, keep sharing your stories. Our community is hurting. Our kids are hurting. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. And I just love seeing this community come together and continue to share our stories, and figure out ways to access the various points of services we have. So again, come to our board meetings, email over questions, comments, and we absolutely love having you there. Thank you.
Ms. Tirza.
Thank you. I'm going to be quick. The agenda was long. I thought we were going to have time to add or change something on the agenda, but I appreciate Mr. Frank, Len French, because he was saying what I wanted to talk about as far as having the diversity and equity inclusion person that we just recently hired. That should be some of the things that she should be looking into. I'm not sure what she's actually doing. We spent working on I-1000. The governor spent over $1 million on what is called the Roadmap to Contracting and Equity, where they went through the entire state, every department, every business, every city. They went through everybody, how many Black people are hired, how many females, they went through everything to break down exactly what was happening in our city as far as diversity and equity and inclusion. So we took this to the mayor. I personally did, and he told me he didn't have a problem with that issue in Federal Way, which apparently everybody else disagrees with. So when we hired the diversity and inclusion person, my concern is that we hired this person, and I'm not clear if they understand what that role is. I'm not clear on the training that the city has had to make sure that they are making sure that these things are put into action in a new way, because there is new training that needs to be trained. You can't keep doing business as usual based on these things that the governor has put in place, and the equity, diversity, and inclusion. It's not just a word or a phrase, it's an actual real thing. I don't know that she's getting the respect that she deserves, because if you're asking her to come in and do a job, we had one that left because I think they had the same problem. You asked her to come in and do a job, but then she has no real authority in making any changes with the city managers. Even her own supervisor doesn't have any real authority. So I'm wondering, was this position put in again just to say you have the position, but you have no real plan on making it any real changes? So that is a question. I also want to know what training has been done by the city management and the city managers, the directors, and everybody else in the city for diversity and equity training. So how do you even know how to work with the executive person that you've hired? You don't even know what she does. So I'm just asking that those things be brought to our attention in factual information at the next meeting. And I also want to end with the fact, this one thing that I wanted to bring up as far as the naming of the John and Mary Connor. They wanted to name in secret the trail, Panther Trail, for this family who has contributed so much to Federal Way in politics. And they were one of the first people here that was about diversity, equity, and inclusion. He actually wrote law and was in the political scene. They also were philanthropists. They gave much money and land to the Federal Way. And for them not to honor him with anything and then wanted to give him naming a trail, I was highly offended, as most people in our community were, as well as the family who actually lives here still in Washington. They were not even consulted. So I would like to state for somebody, unless someone could tell me somebody else of color, African-American, that has done more for this city, I would like to say that we would rename the PAC Center, Performing Arts Center, the John and Mary Connor Performing Arts Center. And with that, I also am concerned that because we're now asking to have an African-American named in a prominent place for all African-Americans and BIPOC people to see in a prominent place, not a trail on a tree, but now you want to change the rules. When you named Peter Von Road, you didn't have all this extra stuff. When you named anything else that you named, even when you were going to put his name on a tree, John and Mary Connor, you didn't ask for all this, but now the family has come forth and now the community is crying out against it. You want to change the rules and regulations. I again find that highly offensive when you say that you want to be inclusive and you want our community to come up and be a part of this community. I think it's wrong, and I think we need to address that as well. And they've already planned some other secret meetings, which is just not fair. So I want the community to be aware that we need to make some changes. And I am again calling that we would change the PAC Center to the John and Mary Connor Performing Arts and Entertainment Center. Thank you.
The only reason, so Brian stood up, he was going to answer the question, but the only reason is because of the time. I want to make certain that we give it its full response. And for those two things, one, how do we make certain that your first question, what does the diversity in our city look like? You have personally shared with the mayor the numbers, the workers, the faces, the race, all of those things. We need to have a clear understanding of what that looks like. So that will be on our agenda for the next meeting. As you stated, that'll be an agenda item. It deserves its own time and attention to that alone. And next, we'll also add as the agenda item, how do we name important buildings? How do we make certain that Federal Way is truly reflective of the people that live here? What is that process? If we had a street named for one person, why can't we get the same thing? So we're going to explore that. There's just simply no time for you to adequately do that because those are very important things in the community. So we're just going to add that onto the agenda. Oh, Brian insists. Okay, if you can do it in 2 minutes, that'd be wonderful.
I just need to address not so much the things that we will discuss about the process. There were no secret discussions. I just want to be clear on that. That's not something that we do here at the city. There was a request from the Historical Society. We looked at it and we had a proposal. It's true that we did not reach out to the family. That was a mistake on our part that we probably should have done, but it was not done in secret. It was going to go to public meetings. Every step of the way was going to be a public process. So I just want to be clear on that we're not in the business of doing anything in secret here. And the suggestion to establish a criteria was from the family itself. So we're not changing the rules. We simply don't have any rules. And so that's why we're trying to establish a process for renaming things. Thanks.
Even with that, we're putting it on the agenda. We're going to make certain that we have a clear process. If there's not rules and we're establishing it, we're going to make certain that we have a chance to know exactly what is expected so we can be a part of it from the beginning. So again, my response is still the same. We're still going to add this on for further discussion. Last comment, question is Trinice Rogers.
Thank you. This is a perfect segue to my comment, and I want to respond. This is in response actually to Mr. French's his comment earlier regarding his comment. So, and then the question was, what is the diversity in Federal Way looks like? So I just all want to share with you, there's a process going on currently. I currently serve on the ad hoc committee, and the focus is the comprehensive plan. And unfortunately, so this document is 20 years old, right? So when you think of a comprehensive plan, it's 20 years old, and we're approaching the expiration date. And so we're looking to revise this 20-year-old document, right? And so unfortunately, in this 20-year-old document, the word diversity does not exist in this document. So when we talk about the diversity of City of Federal Way, the word diversity does not exist in this document. There is resistance in how we're going to implement diversity. Are we going to feather it into every chapter? Are we going to have, is it going to have a standalone chapter? That's undecided. But what I want to share is how important it is that we, as the Black community, are actively engaged in this comprehensive plan. It's almost, we have like another year before it's complete, but it's imperative that we are engaged and active in this process. When we think of the comprehensive plan, it's going to last for another 20 years. And so when we think of the forecast of the city, what do you want the city to look like? How we're going to be reflected in the community? This is the process in which you can definitely take ownership and really identify diversity. So when you think of comprehensive plan, ad hoc committee, anything like that, please show up, please engage. Your voice is desperately needed. Thank you.
And Ms. Trinice, when you say engage, are you referring to engagefw.com?
Engage, I'm sorry, what was that again?
Engage.
Well, I mean, there were opportunities like
fw.com.
Well, yes, that's one way, but we had a recent event at the Performing Arts Center where they were presenting this process to the community, and it was the diversity was not represented. You know, we will have ongoing opportunities. I have the privilege of being present, and I've attended at least 4 ad hoc committees as chair of the Diversity Commission, but and also please reach out to the city. Please look for and request and recommend ways that this process, this comprehensive plan process, can reach the community, because the management of this process is actively trying to figure out how to effectively engage the community. So there's
folks
a need
here inside that want to, they want to find out more. How can they engage? Can you give a, for those here, can you give a link or information on where they can plug in?
Well, I have Miss Sarah, she's available there. I know she has access to the actual contact. What I have available to me are individuals that actually participate in the ad hoc committee. So I'm not at liberty to share that information, but if you just reach out to the City of Federal Way website, there should be there should be some type of representation as it relates to this comprehensive plan. At the very least, you can definitely access it through the website, and send an email to Kevin, Niven, that's his last name. He is the one that is definitely wanting to hear from the community. He's actually the one that is, I believe, the director in this process. Brian, help me out. So Brian, he's the one that's actually leading this effort. Is that correct?
Yes.
In a sense.
So part of, I have 2 roles right now. I'm the city administrator, but also the community development director, and this falls under the community development department. And it's, like you said, Chair Rogers, it's the update to the city's comprehensive plan, and the really the best way for anyone that wants information on it is to either go to the website, like you said, but more specifically, if they go to engagefw.com, that's like has all the documents, meetings, information that you need to know to get started and to get plugged into that process. We really want to hear from you because so far the participation and the feedback hasn't been very strong. So we want to make sure we're reaching everyone on that.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our Federal Way Black Collective quarterly meeting with the mayor's office. We spent a good 2 hours in good communication with each other. This shows that the community, we're doing work. We need the partnership with the mayor's office so we can continue to make Federal Way an inclusive place to work and live. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for your comments, your brilliance, all of those things. Thank you, Federal Way Black Collective, Felicia Hudson. Thank you so much for all of us. Peace and God bless.
Thank you. Good night. Good night, everyone.